And I'm, again, TBH, my personal opinion. I think that a lot of actors who do take queer roles, they are queer. But we just think that they are straight. I think there's a very personal motivation for a lot of these actors why they're taking these roles. I don't think that it's always, a straight person just looking for clout. And I do think there are examples of straight people having done queer movies, but I find for the most part, it seems like these are people that I believe to be queer that are taking these roles for that personal reason.
Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby, aka Andrew. Thank you so much for listening to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room podcasts. And before you hear today's episode, which I just know you're going to love, can you please do me a favor? And wherever you're listening, if it's Spotify or Apple, please rate and review us. Make sure you're following the podcast. Share it with friends, family, anyone you think would just love hearing this conversation. And you can watch our podcast on YouTube. Yes, we have a YouTube channel. It's called the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, and you'll see the video episode. So please make sure you like the video you're watching and comment. I always respond to the comments. Also, we have a Patreon. So if you don't want any of the ads and you want bonus material, join our Patreon. There's a 1 week free trial. It's patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And the free trial is for the professor level. Without further ado, here is today's exciting episode. Thank you all for being so patient. So I am fully now recovered, knock on wood. I'm knocking if you don't hear me. And I was sick and just very exhausted. So there's a reason why the episode came out a little late. But I know you all are going to love my conversation with author Celia Laskey, who this is her third time on the podcast. I think this is a record. I think she is the first third timer author to come on the podcast. Um, Gregory Maguire has been on twice, but Celia, you beat out Gregory Maguire. So, Gregory, you have to come back on the podcast to be a third timer. So, I know you're all going to just love our conversation about Hollywood's obsession with the PR machine around keeping celebrities in the closet, slash, now the media just being fully invested in the celebrity sexuality. So, Celia talks about her and speculations about who might be in the queer community, the life of a showgirl. That's all I'm going to say there. And then we also get into a really interesting conversation about the PR machine around celebrity culture. So I hope you enjoy this. Also, I recorded it during Pride Month, so that's why I talk a little about Pride Month if you're just wondering why this is not coming out during Pride Month, but I bring that up. So now, here's my conversation with Celia. Hi, everyone. Happy Pride Month. It's Dr. Andrew Rimby. I am so happy to be joined with a three-timer to the ITBR. I think this might be the first three-timer. I'll have to think about that. But
Ooh.
Celia Laskey is just such a wonderful writer. If you haven't heard, she came on the podcast when I was teaching her book, Under the Rainbow. I think that was maybe 2021,
It was probably
2021.
2020 or 2021.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then about 2.5 years ago, she came back on to talk about So Happy for You, which was such a wonderful read. And then we're
Thank you.
honored to have Celia back on to talk about her new novel called Cover Story. She's a finalist for the 2020 Center for Fiction First Novel Prize. She has an MFA from the University of New Mexico, lives in LA with her dog Whiskey, who might make an appearance. We'll see.
You might hear him.
Enjoys, yes, enjoys gossiping about closeted celebrities, which is definitely a timely piece of information for your new book.
Hmm.
Dissects Taylor Swift lyrics. Maybe we could talk a little
Maybe the two are
about.
related.
I think they might be, and I think you know there's other writers who are also in that camp as well. She sings the
Hmm.
praises of probiotics and diva cups, uh, learns the name of plants via an app on her phone, rewatches Man Men or Veep, and says that she's up to her 443,728th time. So very gonna hold you to that number. And loves to pick up holds from the library, and I'm in that camp too. I love when I get that notification. So, Celia, welcome back to the ITBR.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, I'm so curious when I knew that you were working on this new novel and, the blurb came out about it, the cover came out. I was so curious, like, where you were going to head from So Happy for You, which is like, for everyone out there,
Mm.
not to spoil it, but like a psychological thriller meets wedding gone awry. And it's like so fascinating what happens in that novel that then you were going to look back into 2005 and the mainstream media's obsession with outing celebrities. And I thought it
Well,
was
actually, I
such.
would say the
Oh,
opposite. The mainstream media's obsession with never speaking about
mm,
the sexuality of celebrities. It was very in 2005. It was very like don't ask, don't tell, baby.
no. And
Yeah.
I think that it was so interesting to me that you were kind of heading into the Hollywood machine of it all. So, like, how did
Mm.
that come to be as an idea that, oh, I'm going to look into a celebrity who's in the closet and what happens when they have to walk this tightrope of, am I going to be out? It's going to ruin my career. What are the ramifications?
Yeah. Well, I think the idea to write this book first came to me when I read Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And that was sort of like the first queer rom-com that I feel like a lot of people read. It was probably the first one I read. And that was just sort of like, oh, we're allowed to do this now? Like maybe I would love to do this too. So I got in my head the idea of like writing my own queer rom-com. And then when I was thinking what I wanted it to be about, it was very natural to think about, all right, well, what am I obsessed with? And probably number one thing that I'm obsessed with is closeted celebrities. And it is because, have I ever told you the story about how this all started?
No, 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 please tell it.
Okay, so this was like probably over a decade ago now, and I used to have friends over for like a potluck party every month, and like my very fabulous gay male friend who was like always going to like these really nice events. He was dating the editor of a really popular fashion magazine at the time, and so they had just been at like an after party for some like big Hollywood event. And
Mm,
he just sort of casually mentioned that he had seen this A-list actor with two Academy Awards, who had always been publicly partnered with women, that he had seen him kiss a man at this party. And we were all like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, I know. And then like everyone at the party was like, oh, that's his longtime male partner. Like, he's just bearding with these women that we have thought that he was with all these years. And so hearing that from one of my best friends and knowing that he had seen it with his own eyeballs, I was just like, whoa, so this is true, that the media is really complicit in helping these celebrities stay closeted. And not that I think people should be outed ever, but just, there's a whole machinery that's at work here. And basically, after finding out about that very first person, it became like an addiction. And now that I live in Los Angeles, it's just like there are all these people here where it's very, very, very open secret, like they might as well be out conversationally to everyone here in LA. But yeah, I'm just always trying to find out more and more.
yeah, I like all of the incisive journalism you're doing undercover here. I think that it's interesting because when you think of the men with, a beard, like having some cover of hiding their sexuality. I think, of course,
Mm,
of Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter,
totally.
even like women like Lauren Bacall, question mark, Betty Davis. Like there's a lot of speculation.
Totally.
But to
Yeah.
think of 2005, you're right. This is the time of when Ricky Martin was like, you know, it was kind of an open secret, but like no one really
Yep.
wanted to talk about it. And then if someone thought you were gay, it really could just hurt the demographic of their audience. So, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this is 20 years ago. And I think like it's fascinating to bring us back to that time. And it kind of reminds me of the play Take Me Out. Do you know that
I don't,
baseball play?
I'm not a theater gay, so
Okay.
I don't really know a lot of play references are like lost on me. I apologize.
No, it's okay. But a lot of it, when I came back to Broadway a few years ago, my fiance
Mm,
saw it and was like near the front row, and there's like a nudity scene with them in the locker room. That was like all the rage. And the audience
mm,
members had to hide or they had to put their phone in a locker because people were taking photos. You
uh,
know, and that was not what the actors wanted. But it's basically just about a baseball player who is gay and like um is being exposed that like his sexuality is going to come out and it's going to ruin his career and very um
mm-hmm.
I think Jesse Tyler Ferguson played the agent who
Oh,
also plays a
nice.
role in this, but I think
Yeah.
it pairs so well. Like I always say, your books always pair so nicely with theater, like with Under the Rainbow, the Prom musical. Like I think even if you're not a theater
Mm.
gay, your books are really great companions to theater. So,
Oh,
uh,
that's nice to know.
well, and I love how free you are in genres. Like, is that something that you think a lot about, or it's just you've kind of been drawn to these different genres? Now that the fall season is here, you may be wondering, okay, I had all of these beach reads, Andrew, but now I don't know what books to read for the fall. Well, guess what? My friends at the Gay and Lesbian Review magazine have you covered. Their new September and October issue, called Forgotten Histories, features wonderful book recommendations, TV shows, and films that help excavate LGBTQ history. So, whether you're interested in learning more about the connection between shopping and the gay community, which, I have a Home Goods and Marshalls addiction, as my fiance knows. They got you covered there. They have an article about the attraction of Confederate gentlemen by the incredible writer Andrew Holleran. There's an article about the French evolution of sexual identities and even the first LGBT riot, which happened in 1953. Go over to glreview.org. You can get either a digital subscription or a print subscription. I love my print subscription, which I'm holding up right here. And with the exclusive code ITBR Choice, you will get a free issue with your subscription. So ITBR Choice, put that in the promo code section and get your hands on the Gay and Lesbian Review print or digital subscription. I know you're going to love their magazine.
Well, let me tell you, I wish my old agent and the publishing industry in general liked how much I jump around between genres. They would really like me to pick one and stay in that lane, you know? Like I don't think it's actually good for my career the way that I jump around, because a lot of authors, it's like they write queer rom-coms and that's it, or they write like literary fiction and that's it. But for me, I really do believe that variety is the spice of life. Like I don't even like to eat leftovers because I want to just eat something new every single day.
Yeah.
So to me, like the way that I stay interested in all of my books is by doing something really different every single time. And I can't say that at the beginning of my career, I set out to be like, I'm going to write in a different genre every single time. It just sort of like organically happened. And like each new idea I have just sort of organically fits. shifts into a new genre. So it's not like I planned any of this, but as I go, it's just sort of made sense to dabble around.
Yeah. Well, and I recently went to Miami for the first time and I had lunch at the
Mm.
Versace mansion and then started getting into the FX series. My
Oh
fiance
yeah.
again was like upset, not obsessed. It sounds like he's obsessed with the Versace assassination. No, it's not like he's, putting all these pictures on the wall and drawing string or drawing, lines
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
CSI, but something that's fascinating is Ricky Martin's in that series. I guess I how came to my
Mm.
mind, but there was like the open secret you said. There's even like the queer network that starts to build, especially around gay celebrities, I feel, from
Hmm.
the 90s into the early 2000s. But what I love about your book so much, Celia, is that it's a famous female celebrity who's closeted or holding this her sexuality as a secret. Like, do you feel
Hmm.
that looking at how women compared to men are viewed in the media, like, are there differences in your opinion when it comes to cases of coming
Mm.
out or closetedness in the early 2000s?
Well, I'll just say, TBH, I feel like it's honestly very similar even today, the situation for a lot of celebrities coming out. Like there are still so many closeted celebrities even today. Fun fact is I actually originally set this book in present day. And when I tried to sell it, the feedback was that it was not realistic because no celebrities are closeted anymore. And I was like, ooh, ooh, do you not know? But basically, instead of fighting that, I said it in 2005 when it was believable that there were still so many closeted celebrities. And that's an interesting question, like gay male versus like lesbian. I feel like ultimately it's probably harder for gay men because lesbianism can still have an element of male gaze to it, you know? Like men can still look at a pair of women and say, "Oh, that's hot," you know? And as we know, the patriarchy is, the strongest influence is in our society. So if men can find it hot, it's not as distasteful to them as two men, which, and honestly, I think the reason that that is like less quote unquote accepted is because how many men like um feel a little curiosity about that, you know? But anyway, yes, ultimately, I think it is harder for gay men to come out. And I feel like there's also a thing that happens a lot with female celebrities where they will say that they're like bisexual at some point, and no one even it's not even like a thing that gets written up anywhere or people don't even know about it, you know? It's like if that female celebrity is still mostly publicly partnered with men, then people aren't gonna be like, oh, they're queer. You know, it's like you and I probably know that they're bisexual, or at least that like they're openly bisexual, but a lot of the general public would have no idea because they're still, publicly partnering with people of the opposite sex.
Such an interesting point, and I feel like, and a good example of that is Anna Paquin, like when she was in True
Mm,
Blood, and she like was
hmm.
openly bisexual, and the conversation was, well, she has a husband, so her bisexuality is erased, and it's
Or
like,
just most
yeah,
people from like the middle of the country just know that she has a husband. And so they don't know that she is bisexual because that news like never made it into their radar.
yeah, they're not searching for the list
Yeah.
of
They're
openly
not they're
bisexual
not
celebrities.
obsessed with this topic like I
Well,
am.
we need that obsession because it is so ripe for the picking of what you latch onto. And I feel like when you're saying, of course, there's still closeted celebrities. I mean, there's a famous one or two Scientologists who get talked a lot about. So, you know,
Hmm.
one of them has a very open secret. And,
Yes.
let's just say he likes to dance a lot in his earlier films. So,
Yes.
all of that aside, I think, though, what I find so interesting in your narrative is the character of Allie
Mm.
is just that, like, being a publicist, in my opinion, like, I don't I've never had training in public relations, but I do feel
Hmm.
like you also living in Hollywood, like in LA, being in the center of the belly of what PR is. I mean, it's changed probably a lot with social media, but
Hmm.
like, in your opinion, did you have to do a lot of research to figure out, okay, this is how I have to realistically portray what it would be like as a publicist in Hollywood?
Yeah, I did have to do quite a bit of research. And it's very interesting because I knew I wanted to set it in the early 2000s once we got that feedback about how, it's not believable in present day. But I didn't know what exact year I was going to choose from the early 2000s. And then in my research, 2005 was this real, like, changing point in terms of celebrities and public relations because pre 2005, it was like, everything went through the publicist. So it was very easy to sort of keep things contained. But then in 2005, like the internet sort of started taking over. We've got YouTube, we've got all of these celebrity blogs, and celebrity blogs, they weren't working with publicists. They were just like exposing shit. Like they were not running this stuff by the publicist. And then also in 2005, it was when like the majority of Americans started to have a camera on their cell phone. So it turns the general public into paparazzi, essentially. So they can like snap a pic if they see a celebrity out like doing whatever. So it really became this point in time where publicists had so much less control. And I think they were like freaking the fuck out of like how do we manage this? So that ended up being really interesting, thinking about how, the changing times made it so much harder to do this job.
Mm. And like 2005, I feel like there's so many iconic films that like are either right
Mm,
before 2005 or like it's just such a sweet spot when it comes to uh things that are still so iconic, like Mean Girls, Legally
mm,
Blonde, Miss
mm.
Congeniality, um and films that really explore, I feel, um like they have such a big queer audience and fan base, but
Yes.
not
Yeah.
necessarily openly queer actors, or like the characters aren't necessarily queer, but there is a lot of
Or there's some like
posturing.
heavy coding going on.
Hmm.
Like Mean Girls, the character, like sort of goth character who's like obsessed with Regina George. Like I think that character was probably originally written as a lesbian, or at least they were like, we're gonna code this character heavily, for this audience. Um, which is interesting because they did have like the gay male supporting character in
Yes.
Mean Girls, like too gay to function. But it's like, oh, a lesbian might be a bridge too far.
Yeah, well, and like he's made to be, I love the actor. I think the acting is great, but he's made to be the comic relief. Like it's kind of an
Yeah,
overly flamboyant portrayal, and it's kind of that Will and Grace type of,
yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah,
we can have the comedic gay man who's over the top. But you're right.
yeah,
Like, oh, if we have him and an openly gay woman, is this going to be too much for the audience to handle? Which I guess is
yeah.
interesting. And I feel like in Legally Blonde, there's oh yeah, there's the gay European man during the
Mm,
trial who's like one of the witnesses, and his husband's in the or boyfriend's in the courtroom and like screams out. Uh, and I think
I don't remember
also
that.
there's like Elle Woods might even have one of the sorority sisters, I feel, has a crush on her, or there's some
Okay.
thing going on there. So, yeah, I mean, I think it makes
Yeah,
sense
yeah.
why these even Desperate Housewives, I think, starts right after 2005, if I remember, somewhere a little around there. And it's interesting. And I guess my question to you,
Mm,
Celia, is why do you think, like, you know, going to 2005, why was it okay for, say, Perez Hilton to be leaking all this celebrity gossip and people were really clamoring for
Mm,
it. Like they were obsessed. I remember being in school and everyone wanted to know, like, oh, what is he saying now? And like that was okay for him to be
yeah.
doing. But, if he revealed an out celebrity, their career and the roles that they're being offered were going to definitely affect them in the future. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you outed Neil Patrick Harris, there was the whole question of, okay, well, is he now going to ever be able to play straight again in a film? So it's like interesting to see
Right.
where it was okay to be gay when it came to Hollywood.
Well, it's funny because I don't think that a lot of people did think it was okay what Perez was doing. You
Mm.
know, I think a lot of people thought it was pretty uncool what he was doing. Definitely, like the media did not like it. Definitely, the publicists did not like it, and I'm sure the celebrities did not like it. And I think for us, especially probably at the age that we were at then, we weren't like quite as discerning, and so it's like we just loved sort of the gossipiness of it all. Um, but I can understand, I don't know, it's like I can understand the frustration with if you're someone like Perez and you know for a fact that like all these people are closeted, like I can understand wanting to push on that, but I think like the openly revealing names was very not cool. You shouldn't do that. Um, so yeah, I feel like there were a lot of people that weren't okay with what he was doing.
Yeah. See, I kind of wish if he existed now, he could out all of the hypocritical Republicans on Grinder.
Mm,
I could have lived
mm-hmm.
for, you know,
Yes.
we need that kind of traction now. But
Yes, totally.
but he wasn't exactly doing that. You're right. Like, is it right for him to dox names back
Yeah.
then and just such speculation and you know it's kind of like Dumois um and the Dumois podcast and you don't really know who she is but she's just like airing receipts um
Yeah.
and it's all very unfounded but
Although
yeah.
I find Dumois like so boring. I don't
Yes.
know. It's just like it's basically like here are some photos of a celebrity that we like saw out. And I don't know. I just feel like they're not doing as much like deep digging as the blogs like back in the day. And part of that is probably like a good thing. But yeah, with Dumois is kind of all we have these days for like our blind item gossip.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I feel like though 2005 was also such an explosion in reality TV. And it's like when the Real
Mm,
Housewives starts to gain a lot of traction, Bravo is really becoming popular, and you're getting more of gossip front and center. Like you're getting more of that dramatic soap
yeah,
opera ness
yeah,
as a culture. But you're right. Like now I feel the blind items don't really hit the way they did before social media was,
yeah. And just
around.
for me as someone who like, again, my personal opinion, as someone who believes like Taylor Swift is gay, I'm just like who cares about the PR-ness of what her and Travis Kelce are doing? Like y'all are really gonna buy into that? Okay.
Well, now, do you think Travis Kelsey's in the closet? Is the question, Celia?
Yes. Yes. I think he has, and again, personal opinion, I think he has a boyfriend who is also a football player.
Mm, that would be
Yeah.
wonderful. See, I want that to be. I wish
I
there
mean,
were more football
it
players
has to
who
be
were out.
mutually beneficial for both people, right? And I could see a scenario in which it's hugely beneficial for Travis to do this even if he isn't gay, but just personally, I believe that he is, and that's sort of why it really works for both of them.
All things said here, alleged. It's alleged, right? Okay,
Yeah,
we're
don't sue
covered.
me. Don't sue me.
We're covered. But so, what I find really interesting too is you're dealing with a publicist in your novel who like has just gone through a really rocky um, relationship and is now dealing with a representing an actress who is struggling with whether she's going to come out or not. And
Hmm.
I assume that it must have been exciting to write a character who sympathizes with the actress, the famous actress, but also knows that her job is to shield the actress from any kind of public scrutiny. Like, what was that like trying to craft the publicist character with Allie?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of good tension there, right? Because it's like she's a lesbian herself, she's out, she doesn't believe in this closeting, that she's forced to do, but she's sort of forced to do it. Um, and I wanted it to be realistic that she's willing to do it, so
Mm.
that's why I made her such a fearful person. It's like she's terrified of everything. So obviously she's not the kind of person who's going to like push back against this because it's always interesting when you're writing a character who's different than you because I feel like at the time I was writing this book, I was suffering from like a lot of anxiety. So I was just like channeling that. But if I were in this position where I had a job where I was being forced to like closet celebrities, I would have quit ages ago. I probably would have quit the very first time that they told me to like push this beard contract across the table. Or I would have been like really trying to fight it from the inside for like a couple years. And then if it looked like that was failing, I just would have left. So it's very interesting, someone um, who puts up with this year after year after year. Um, and so, yeah, she's doing this like terrible thing, but I hope that readers have empathy for her because they can see how much she struggles with it and they can see, how terrified she is to push back against it.
Well, and what's so interesting is the general public, there's always those calls for recognizing that Hollywood is so liberal and they're full of
Mm,
such wokeism. I mean, certain side likes to paint that narrative more than another. But what's
hmm.
fascinating is the more you talk to, and I'm sure, Celia, you have a lot of contacts in the LA entertainment community, is that's not true. Like Hollywood is not
No,
full of a bunch of like, you know, anarchist people who are willing to destabilize the whole film industry.
totally. And it's funny because you're like, think about like theater kids in high school, who wants to become actors? And then they all like grow up to be actors, and we're supposed to believe that they're all like straight. But anyway, yeah, I just feel like people think Hollywood is way more liberal than it actually is. And as I mean, at the end of the day, it's capitalism, right? It's like if we want these movies, these TV shows to make money, then we have to keep these stars in the closet. So,
Yeah, and I feel like we've had more, I guess, visibility of queer narratives in the mainstream, specifically TV. I think streaming has done an incredible job. But when it comes to a
yeah.
Hollywood blockbuster, it's still pretty rare for a Hollywood blockbuster to have an openly queer narrative.
Yeah, like Bros, Billy Eichner's movie. I loved that movie. I thought it was so
Yeah.
good. And I know that there was like controversy around certain things to do with Bros. But it was really devastating to me that that movie like didn't do better because I think Hollywood can now use that as an example of like, well, we tried like a blockbuster with a romantic plot line with two men and it fucking failed, And it's like, ugh, like so when is the next time that we can try this?
Try it again, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think too, it's fascinating that you'll have a Call Me by Your Name or Brokeback Mountain. And I'm not trying to, poke all these holes in them. I love Call Me by Your Name. I think it's,
Mm.
the Army Hammer aside, Army Hammer has had he's
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
redeem himself in his podcast space, but that you have such openly, almost in a way, like on the publicity campaign, that
Hmm.
they're so openly straight, um, but
Hmm.
that them
Or we're
being
supposed to think they
or
are.
think they are, you're right,
Hmm.
and that it's a way for them to also gain clout in award season of like, well, it was so transformative for me to become this gay character. And like it has won a lot of straight
Mm,
actors, like even Eddie Redmayne playing a trans woman.
mm,
And I think is that the Danish girl or
I think
and
so.
okay. And that was controversial too with not casting a trans woman, but I think
Hmm.
it's fascinating though how these seemingly straight men then get even further along in their career where you'll have like a Matt Bomer or someone who's extremely talented, but they don't get offered the same roles and level of roles.
Totally.
Now that the college semester has begun, you know that there are so many books that I can't wait to recommend to you all. Well, my favorite independent publisher, Broadview Press, has some incredible books that have just come out. One of them I'm actually using in my writing course. It's called Writing on Fire, a fierce yet friendly guide to writing humanities essays in college by Rachel Tukolsky. It is such an accessible and interesting book that includes writing exercises for your students. I highly recommend it. Another book that you should get your hands on, especially if you are a writing or English professor, is Academic Writing Now by David Starkey. It includes wonderful, popular essays, nonfiction essays that you can use in your classroom, and they cover a wide range of genres. I cannot wait to use them in my courses. And another book just in time for the Halloween season is Vampire Literature and Anthology, co-edited by Robin Warner and Elizabeth Lewis. I had both of them on the podcast, so listen to that episode because you're going to love all of the vampire literature we talk about. Use my exclusive promo code, go to broadviewpress.com and use the code Ivory Tower for 20% off your order. Yes, 20% off your order. Happy reading.
Are you a fan of classic Hollywood movies?
Are you a fan of queer cinema?
Then do we have the podcast for you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Christian Garcia.
And I'm Luke Del Mar.
And we are your hosts of That Old Gay Classic Cinema, where we take a look at some of the greatest films of all time and analyze them through a queer theoretical lens.
Let's be honest. LGBTQIA plus people have been a part of Hollywood since its inception, and this podcast celebrates those artists and entertainers of yesteryear while also taking a closer look at the queer-coded characters and stories in classic Hollywood films long before queer representation entered the mainstream.
So follow us down the road of classic cinema as we give you a guide to some of the films that touched our hearts, brains, and even gave us courage to be ourselves.
You can listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
All right, listeners, we're ready for our close-up.
And I'm, again, TBH, my personal opinion. I think that a lot of actors who do take queer roles, they are queer. But we just think that they are straight. I think there's a very personal motivation for a lot of these actors why they're taking these roles. I don't think that it's always, a straight person just looking for clout. And I do think there are examples of straight people having done queer movies, but I find for the most part, it seems like these are people that I believe to be queer that are taking these roles for that personal reason.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
I like something that I actually always like to remind people is how every like few years Channing Tatum gets back in the zeitgeist of, oh, did you know he's bisexual? And it's like, yeah, he's like talked about this for a
Again, but
while.
most people don't know. Most people would be like, what are you talking about? Channing Tatum is bisexual.
Yeah, and that he was a stripper and like this formed the whole background of Magic Mike. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's interesting though too, like just the image that um people have about these celebrities. And like what was it like? I feel Hacks has done a really good job with this in the TV realm when it comes
Mm,
to um, the cutthroat nature of the writers' room and the producers and
mm-hmm.
all of that back and forth tension. But what was it like even dealing with Kara and just getting her voice
Mm,
out there as an actress? Like how she's kind of thrown around in this system. Like even
yeah.
the actresses and actors don't have a lot of agency when it comes to certain ways that specifically in 2005. I mean now, right? They
Yeah.
can create a podcast, they can kind of go on YouTube, they have I think publicists are kind of running scared with the way that they can just
Mm.
start filming themselves on their phone and be out there. But
Yeah.
in 2005, she does have to rely so much on
Mm-hmm.
the way that she's going to be portraying herself in the media space. Like, how was that dealing
Mm-hmm.
with her in this role?
Yeah. I mean, I thought a lot about what if the thing that I wanted to do most required me to hide this integral part of myself, you know? Like, what if to write novels, which is the thing that I want to do more than anything else, I had to be closeted and I had to like essentially write books about straight people. Like that would be terrible. That would be terrible. I don't know how I would ever give an interview or like talk about anything honestly because being gay is just like such an integral part of my personality. And so I thought about if it was someone like me, which I sort of took that for Kara, like, how would that feel to know that the thing you want to do most to act, you have to hide this thing about yourself, and how do you speak about yourself hiding this huge part? Um, so it gave me a lot of empathy, and of course already I had a lot of empathy for these celebrities. I don't blame them for what they're doing at all. I blame the system. But yeah, it gave me a lot of empathy to think about on a daily basis what this would be like for these celebrities. And I really think it eats them up. I really think it like greatly harms their psychological state and their happiness. Like Elliot Page has talked a lot about like what it did to him, and
Mm.
like Kristen Stewart. They've talked about how it really like plagued them. And yeah, so having those two things just be up against each other, it must be terrible.
Yeah. Well, do you feel that, doing research or just like yourself being so invested in celebrity culture or like interested in these narratives, do you feel like there's a tokenizing that happens where, okay, well, we'll put a certain queer celebrity on a pedestal and, make sure it doesn't look like we're a homophobic industry?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, it's like now that we have a few out people really think the problem is over, you know? But it's like s- it's just funny to me how people can't seem to recognize that those few out people are not statistically representative of like the queer population at large. Like there have to be more than them, and yet people don't really think about it.
Well, it's
But
like,
yeah, it must be really hard to be these few out queer people and feeling like they need to speak for, and even for queer people like us on a day-to-day basis, sort of the feeling that you need to speak for an entire community um, all the time.
well, and it reminds me of the actors roundtables where you'll
Mm.
have conversations about, there's always that question if it's like all women, and they love to ask them, you know, is Hollywood a better space now for women in entertainment? And it's like, okay, this is such a loaded question, but I always appreciate when there'll be someone will say, well, it's not just about us as women acting, it's about the showrunners, the producers, like the writers in the room. Like, you know, if you're a woman of
Hmm.
color, are there other women of color on set with you? And the same is true of the queer community. Like, are there other openly gay producers and showrunners and, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, it could be, you're representing the community, but also who else is standing behind you in this
Yeah.
machine of the industry. I
Yeah.
think that that's still an ongoing issue. Like you've said, you know,
Mm.
it's this still the openly queer acting community doesn't represent the population of the LGBTQ community statistically
Mm-hmm.
still. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's still work to be done if there are actors who are afraid to come out because they think that, and there are actual repercussions, like when it comes to their jobs and their roles.
Yeah. Yeah. What roles they could get. Yeah.
Yeah. So, was there any film or TV shows or other books that you turn to, maybe not just for the topic, but just
Mm.
with narrative or what you find helpful for your own process?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, Red, White, and Royal Blue was sort of um, the first book that got me thinking about writing this rom-com. So I went back and essentially used that book as like a Bible, and like studied it. Like, okay, what page was the first kiss happening on? What page was
Mm,
this happening on? How are all of these things coming together? So that was definitely something that I was like studying at the time. Um, but then I can't really say that there were. Oh, I remember I watched this terrible TV show because it was about PR people and sort of like how they would control celebrities' image. I think Anna Paquin was on it.
oh,
Um, and it was really hilarious, like the fixes that the characters on this TV show would come up with to sort of like try to solve whatever trouble the celebrity had gotten into. I actually used some of the examples from that TV show as like ideas that the really bad boss Victoria has sometimes. It's like, oh well, we could just like do this or that. So that show didn't end up being like useful research wise, but it was really hilarious. And I wondered if any like actual publicists were consulted in the making of that show. Um, but yeah, I can't really think of any other like movies or TV shows that I was sort of like directly using as inspiration.
mm. What did you learn, like, from writing your novel? Did you learn anything else about behind the scenes of Hollywood that surprised you? Like, that you might have discovered and realized, things aren't the way they appear to be. Because it is such a
Mm,
smoke and mirrors type of industry. Even like I'll hear people say who live in LA, oh, I see celebrities all the time, but like you wouldn't even really recognize them. Like the way that the camera makes someone look, it is a whole art.
mm,
It's not like theater where they're there right on the stage in front of you. Like, there
mm,
are ways to kind of manufacture an image. So like, did you learn anything more about that smoke and mirror process?
mm. I mean, honestly, I feel like since this is my personal obsession, I sort of was doing research all the time leading up to this book, not even knowing that it was like gonna be for a novel. But yeah, I feel like since I'm so interested in it, I didn't really learn anything new while I was writing the book. But I would say in my general like life research that I've done. Most people don't believe that there are literal beard contracts, that these two people sign, and it designates how many years they're going to publicly be together. It designates like how many times per week they're going to be seen together and like photographed by the paparazzi. Um, and yeah, I feel like the general public wouldn't think that there were actual like contracts for this stuff.
Yeah. Or how many celebrities are actually calling the paparazzi,
Yeah,
which
totally.
is fascinating because, like, you would think, oh, okay, if you know that this restaurant is going to gain a lot of paparazzi and you want to try to live, under the radar. You would probably not go to that restaurant and instead you'd go to something off the beaten path. But like, you
I
know,
think almost every photo we see of a celebrity taken by paparazzi, they have like known about it. They've like probably helped orchestrate it, you know? Like if Taylor Swift doesn't want to be photographed, she's not photographed. You know, like this past summer, uh she's gone dark, you know, like we barely see her anymore. So it's like she knows how to not be photographed. So therefore, every time she is photographed, she must know about it.
yeah. Well, it's kind of like how many times do you see Beyonce out and about photographed?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like I've always
totally.
felt Beyonce has a real um privacy about her. Like you rarely even see her on interviews. Like I feel like
Yep.
notoriously she's very it's very controlled. Um,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
you
and
have
it's
no, sorry, go ahead.
oh, and it's just like amazing that she can have the level of fame that she does have. And we have like no access to her. You know, like that probably wouldn't work for a lower tier celebrity, you know? But like I'm glad it works for her. Like, yeah, keep your life.
Yeah. And then you have the Kardashians who are appearing in anything they can get their hands on. So, right, like a very
Yeah.
different way of gaining. Like they
Yeah.
gained the fame by appearing and
Hmm.
playing that influencer game that they learned from
Yeah.
Paris Hilton, in my opinion. Uh,
Totally. Yeah. So if you want to talk about 2005, Paris Hilton was the OG for like all of this.
yes, yes. No, I think we can credit her for selfie culture. Like she
Yeah.
was on top of that. And, for better or for worse, like now we are the controllers of, we can control narratives, but we also can put out our own media, which has caused a lot of issues too when you don't have fact checking.
Yeah.
So, you know, you got to trust your sources. But, Celia, I'm so happy that this novel is out there for everyone. I think that you give us so much food for thought about public versus private life, how, we view celebrity culture, like going back to even just 20 years ago, how certain questions were asked that aren't really as present now in our current moment,
Mm.
but also
Hmm.
how some things just haven't changed when it comes to, celebrities who aren't comfortable being out, that there
Yeah.
still are beard contracts, which blows my mind, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I
So,
wish we had made more progress, but
yeah,
sometimes it really feels like we have not.
yes. Well, can you tease, has this like led into another project? Are you now in the horror novel genre? Like, you know, what's going on in Celia Laskey's brain right now?
So my next book, that's finished that actually, we're trying to sell right now. It's sort of like back in my literary fiction vibe. It's about a lesbian who experiences an immaculate conception.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
I love
and it
it.
ended up like when the idea first came to me, I was like, "Oh, how fun! This is going to be like a zany, wild book." And then it ended up being like the most spiritual, like writing that book changed my life in a way that I totally did not see coming. It's sort of like a meditation on the unknown and faith. And like it ended up taking me on this really serious journey that I was not prepared for. So yeah, that is the next thing. And hopefully, it will see the light of day sometime.
Yeah, well, I'll have you back on definitely. Queer faith and spirituality is, I think, a genre that has not been explored
Yeah,
as much as it should be because, you can be
yeah.
queer and spiritual. Like the two
Especially
go
in
hand in hand.
LA.
Yes. In LA, in the New York area, there's a lot of there's pride flags here in my town with the churches, so that does warm my
Hmm.
heart. So
Hmm.
Celia, how can everyone follow you on social media, get their hands on all of your books, including Cover Story?
You can go to my website, celialasky.com. It has all the links to all the book places. And then I'm on Instagram, but I literally can't remember if it's like a period that separates my first from my last name or an underscore. But you can search for me on Instagram and I'm there. And I feel like that's sort of all there is these days. Like no
Yes.
one's really on X anymore. Blue Sky is just never really took off. So yeah, find me on Instagram. That's like the main place that I like do my promo.
Yes. Celia.Lasky. I just found it on Instagram.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you.
So, make sure you follow her, get your hands on Cover Story. You can also get the audiobook. I always love Under the Rainbow, the audiobook with all the different performers. Every audiobook that is
Hmm.
out there of yours, Celia, so well done. So, it's always a thrill to have
Thank
you, and I
you.
can't wait to be back in your orbit again. I love everything you write.
Thank you so much for
Everything you
having
write
me.
is fascinating. So, thank you. This
Oh,
was so enjoyable to have you back here, Celia.
right
Thank
back at
you.
you.
Okay, bye everyone. Thanks, Celia.
See you.